This is a slideshow about my literacy journey. Hey, I'm Ashley Brickley. I'm a graduate student here at Rockford University, where I'm studying to receive my MAT in early childhood education. These are my hands from when I was little. A little bit about myself is I was born on a farm in Harvard, Illinois in 1983. I had a father and a mother, and the farm was a working farm. I was an only child, so that meant my mom did a lot of documentation of me because I was an only child and because that was just her nature. So there's lots of photos and lots of documents from me growing up in my school years. This is a calendar that she kept, a baby calendar, and apparently, when I turned a year old, a couple of days after I turned a year old, I said my first phrase, which was, I go out. This is a story that I had my mom write for me, and I illustrated it. Um, it is not a very interesting story. The only thing that's interesting is I use the word cozy a lot. I believe I must have just learned the word cozy because I'm kind of obsessed with it in this story. My mom was very devoted to my care. She would come to school with me and always was doing activities and things with me. A big importance in our house was reading. My mom would read to me every night. According to her, I would always bring a large stack of books and ask her to read each book 5 times because 5 was my favorite number. So, the way my mom tells it is that she would always end up being hoarse from reading to me so much. But I believe the repetition was really helpful for me because I knew my letters at a very early age, and I was quite comfortable with books. I had a small library in my house despite us not having very much money, and my mom would always take me to the library where I was encouraged to check out books, and I would check out the maximum amount of books each time. I was a big fan of the library. We would do events there and things like that. This definitely fostered a lifelong love of reading that I still have today. I started preschool when I was 3 years old, and it was a very good preschool. It was very interactive. It was only in the afternoons, 3 times a week, but I definitely loved it. We studied all sorts of things. It was sort of like an early. It wasn't just play, but the reason that my mom put me in preschool was not because of academic reasons, but it was because I grew up on a farm and I was an only child, so I didn't have very much socialization with children my own age. So this was meant to get me more familiar and be able to interact with my peers. Here's some examples of handwriting from when I was preschool, and a picture of me in preschool with my friends. Here's an example of early writing from me in preschool, and you can see the difference between me writing my name when we were studying the number 3, and I obviously needed a lot of guidance, and then to me writing my name on the number 8, and it's much smoother and more easily formed. Here is an assessment that I had to take. This section is writing your name and drawing lines. This section was about basic reading readiness skills, um, whether you knew all your letters, shapes, colors, also numbers. Um, this one was um, verbal and auditory perception skills. So if you recognize your name, if your vocabulary is appropriate to your age, you remember songs and figure plays, um, you use words rather than gestures, articulates properly, follows simple directions, things like that. I was fine with all of those. This is a chart to recognize uppercase and lowercase letters, and I knew both uppercase and lowercase completely. I started kindergarten the year I turned 6. I was supposed to start it the year before, but they changed the age date right before I had to go into school. So instead of doing 2 years of preschool, I ended up doing 3 years of preschool. So by the time I got to kindergarten, I was a little bit over it and was um, already pretty proficient in everything that they were teaching me. So I was a little bit bored in kindergarten. Apparently, my mom said that I would miss school a lot because I was just very bored. I already knew everything that they were teaching. So this is a picture I drew. We had built a new house, and this would have been in the winter of kindergarten. So you can see I'm writing, but my syntax or my grammar is really off. House, new, I, you, love. This is a self-portrait from kindergarten where I'm writing head, arm, leg, foot, and my name, and my handwriting is pretty decent for kindergarten, I believe. This would have been in the summer of after kindergarten, and I wrote a postcard to my parents. I don't know how much my grandmother helped me write this. It's possible she held my hand. And then in first grade, we had to do a journal every day, so writing in a journal. And this is an example of the first day of class. You can see the way I'm writing and spelling. I started school, so obviously there's spelling errors and issues with that. And then here's an example of it just a few months later in February. My grammar, my syntax, my spelling, and my writing has much improved. I included this one because I thought it was quite funny. Um, I this must have been there was that war that happened in the 90s in Baghdad, in the Middle East, and I was very scared by it. And was talking about how they were shooting Scud missiles. So I thought the spelling and stuff was very interesting to pay attention to. And then another example of my spelling was how I spelled air balloon. And then I also just thought it was cute riding in an air balloon with a kite. Thought it was funny. In first grade, they had a competition where you needed to read 100 books, I believe, in like 100 days or something like that. Or it must have just been 100 books throughout the school year. And I was the first person in my class, perhaps in the whole school, to reach 100 books. So I was pretty proud of that. Here's an example of um, the lists of books that I would have been reading at the time. Um, I thought it was interesting that you can see my handwriting here. This would have been at the end of first grade. I'm trying to copy my grandmother's handwriting and write in cursive as well. Elementary and beyond. So here's an example of an assessment. I'm not quite sure what grade it would have been, probably like second grade, second, third grade. We were using the textbook World of Reading. And I feel like this is from when I was older, because my handwriting has changed with my name. But it's another example of assessment. We would have been doing grammar assessment here. In the third grade, well, we had been doing state assessment, and I cannot remember for the life of me. I think it was the Stanford tests, and here's an example of that. And funny story about this always stuck up in my head was this was third grade, and I received for the first time post high school marks on certain things, and it was all in reading and language. I scored decently high in the other categories, but post high school was all language and reading. This was memorable to me because I was very competitive with another kid, Eric Guzman, and we were showing each other ours to see who had the highest in certain areas. And he said that the PHS didn't mean, or that the PHS actually meant that I was preschool level. And I was very distraught and apparently took that to my teacher, like practically crying. And she, was trying not to laugh and tell me that no, it did not mean preschool. It actually meant post high school. But I, of course, was very proud of that. But now looking back, I kind of wonder how they could be marking somebody as post high school level when they're only in the third grade. I wonder about the accuracy of that. Here's a little story that I wrote in elementary school about an alien. And I think this was from fourth grade, where I had submitted a poem and was accepted to an anthology. So in the fifth grade, they decided to separate us into advanced tracks, and the advanced classes that my school offered were advanced reading and advanced math. So I was the type of kid that would be in trouble in school for reading all the time. We took the tests, and I scored high enough placement to be placed in both reading and math. They were worried about me paying attention and reading in class, so they thought that would be good for me, but they decided that maybe I wasn't ready to be on an advanced track for math, that I wouldn't be able to stay caught up because of my daydreaming and my reading during class. They decided not to put me in the math class. Instead, my fifth grade teacher took me aside and said, we're going to give you the unit test before each unit, and if you do well enough on it, you're allowed to go out in the hallway and read during math class. Otherwise, if you don't do well enough on it, you'll have to come to class and not read, but actually pay attention. I thought this was a great idea. And looking back, I see that she had meant to, show me that maybe I didn't know everything and that I needed to pay attention. But it kind of backfired because she gave me the test. I think this one was on fractions or decimals or something like that. and I ended up getting like pretty much 100%. I worked really hard on it and I did very, very well. And I don't think that was the lesson that she wanted to teach me. And she decided that since I was so obviously good at math, that they couldn't hold me back. And they put me into the advanced math class where I did fine. They at one point they were talking to my mom and they were saying she stares out the window the whole time. You can tell she just wants to read or she's just not paying attention. But then when we got that first big math test and I did the best in the class, there was no more talk about holding me back or afraid that I wasn't paying attention. So this would have been from sixth grade. It was this sort of biography that we wrote about ourselves, and it's really cute, nice memories to look through. And this was how I described myself, always reading, laughing, or talking. That's pretty much still true. I graduated high school in 2002. This is me with one of my best friends, Dan, and my fourth grade teacher, who I absolutely loved. She came back to see us graduate because we were her first class, which I thought was really sweet. And then I went on to get my bachelor's at Columbia College Chicago in photography, and here is a picture of me graduating there. Thanks for listening.